Good morning.
Good morning.
Cora Marie Campbell. That was your religious name, and it is your religious name.
Yes.
And your baptismal name was?
Genevieve Ann.
Genevieve Ann, okay. And
And my mother didn't want me to take it back after I got my religious name because then no one would know who I really was if I hadn't used it. So I just did what she wanted.
You did. You obeyed Mother right to the end, didn't you?
That's one of those things that happened in our family. My dad was the boss, but my mom was in charge of everything and was, well, she was always at home. She didn't work for the longest time.
You know what? She worked her head off.
I know.
Tell us a little bit about your family. I think that will be a surprise to some of us that didn't know you. At least it was a surprise to me that I didn't know you that well.
Okay.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Newberry.
Newberry, Michigan?
Newberry, Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula. And I met the sisters the first Sunday they came. And I'm mixing my story up, I think.
Nobody
Sister
knows.
Pancratius, who I absolutely adored, taught me catechism, and Sister Marguerite were there. There's one other sister, and I can't remember.
That's okay.
But all along, for some reason or other, those 6 years that were there, my mother would send me to the convent with food for them, you know, like when she baked for the priest and for the sisters. So it was,
we were blessed by the goodness of the parishioners and how we were remembered and gifted with, like your mother didn't have enough to do, that she's baking for the priest. And
but she always shared, which is part of the reason I share. And part of the reason I got along with the kids I taught, because I knew what it was like to be little, and when I got to teaching 8th graders, it was wonderful. I enjoyed it so much.
We can get into the ministries in a little bit, but with your family, tell me, did you have any siblings? Brothers and sisters?
There are 14 of us.
14 of you.
I have an older brother, and then I fall in line. And next to me, I have a sister called Cora Marie, and then the boys all come in line. There are, I have 11 brothers and 2 sisters. And I've always been close to all of them. Especially my brothers. For some reason or other, I could read them and could help them and things like that, so it was good.
A brother's always special.
And almost every summer I tutored one or the other of them.
Oh, you did?
In math, because that was their downfall.
You must have had a lot of responsibilities, being the oldest girl.
Yes.
So what's it like growing up in a household with, I think you said before, there were 8 of you before you entered.
Yes,
okay.
There were. And then after that, my mother had 6 more. Okay. There are 14 of us.
So, but growing up with the 8 of you in the house, I'm sure your mother had it organized that you all had chores?
Yes.
And what was yours?
Usually, finishing, I don't even know how to say it, taking care of dishes and things like that.
Right.
So my mother never did the dishes, we always did them. If she was cooking something or baking something, she would leave them there and then I would finish them up for her, so, because she didn't like to do the dishes. And
that's why she had many kids, probably, to do all the stuff she didn't like to do.
And that's why she had 2 daughters, I think. Actually, there are 3 girls.
So what was the dinner table like with, let's see, 8, there were 10 of you at that time, with your parents? Yeah.
It was crowded. My dad always sat at the head of the table, and my mother sat at his right side. And She never sat down until everything was on the table. And I usually helped because I was the oldest of the girls.
Is there something significant that you recall as you gathered as a family around the table that some of us just say, I always remembered da-da-da-da?
We always sat in the same places.
Right.
And my dad ordinarily, if he was home and not at work, would lead the grace.
Okay.
So that we said grace before we ate. And we were allowed to talk at the table. And we shared the day.
Okay.
They were interested in what we did in school. So that was interesting, too, to hear all the things that happened.
All the good things?
Well, for the boys, I'm not sure. I forgot a Kleenex.
Okay. So for the boys, you're not sure, but I'm sure your parents took care of them if they got reports from school. So when you were in Newberry, the name of the school there was
Newberry High School, area school.
So the nuns were there to teach catechism?
Catechism.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
And Pancratius was the first one who came, and she was there 6 years. She's the one who asked me when I was 4 years old what I was going to do when I grew up. And my mother said, then I looked at her and said, be a sister just like you. Now, I'd never seen the nuns before. It was their first Sunday there. All along, during my growing up, my mother would remind me what I had said to Sister. So my vocation came from Pancratius, but it also came from my mom.
You're not kidding. Her reminder of you.
And I know that my mom had to talk my dad into it because he wasn't very happy about it. But
why was he not happy?
Just because I was the oldest girl, and we celebrated everything together because I was born on his birthday.
That's right. So you were buddies from the beginning.
Yeah, and I liked the sports, and I liked them because that's what he refereed and he coached and things like that. So he was always involved, so I liked sports. And I still do to this day.
Well, you're going to have to do something with these Michigan teams. They don't.
None
of them seem to be doing too good.
They're not real good this year. I have an older brother, and all the other boys are younger than I. And I'm the second oldest. My father named me, but my mom wasn't happy because she didn't want a Genevieve. But we got along fine.
All right, so then when did you actually make the decision and apply to enter the, and how did you, you did the Adrian Dominicans because that's all that's what you knew. Those are the ones.
We looked at other convents. When I said to my mom I wanted to be a sister, I think I was just 8th grader. And so she got a catalog and we went through it and talked about all those sisters. And then my father said I couldn't leave if I didn't go see Sister Joan Treese. So I had to go say goodbye to Joan Treese. I never said goodbye. Cannot remember a word she said to me. But 3 weeks later, I was in Adrian. So she must have been the person I should have talked to in the first place.
So you came to Adrian?
Mm-hmm. I finished my freshman year in high school.
So then you were a prep?
No, I was a postulate because I was almost 16.
Okay.
So they let me do that.
How was that, you're leaving home, coming to Adrian?
It was.
Be honest.
It was horrible. It was hard. I missed my brothers and my sister terribly.
What about your dad?
My dad was. My dad brought me down, and he put his arm around Mother Gerald and said, "Now you take care of my daughter." So she promised him she would take good care of me.
That's sweet.
Yeah. So it started out fine. And then after a while, my impression of what my dad was like was, it was his idea that I enter. And it was my mom's. No, it was mine, because I had wanted to. And I said it several times in grade school.
But you're saying that he took credit for, got it, okay.
He was sure it was his. And I didn't know it, but my mom told me that when she cleaned his wallet out after he died, he had carried a picture of me all along. And every time he saw somebody, he'd tell them that he had a daughter who was a nun. So
Very proud of you.
Oh, yeah.
That had to be hard for them to go back. He brought you down. Your mom didn't come with you?
No.
Just you and your dad?
The parish priest and my dad and I think my sister next to me in age came with us.
So that was 1952? Okay. And then you entered in the formation program?
Yeah, I was a postulant. And cried myself to sleep every night. But my mother said that my brother Tom would sit on the porch every morning and cry because I left him, because he was the boy that I took care of. My sister Cora is next to me in age, and as the new baby was born, I got the first one to take care of. He was my charge. And then the next baby was my sister's charge, and then we went back and forth. So in a real sense, I had a chance to help with my brother, help him talk and play. And every place I went, he went with me. It's a kind of thing.
And your mother, you were such a great help with that large family and what you did. I'm surprised she let you go to the convent.
She was happy.
Yeah.
She really had wanted to enter, and her mother wouldn't let her. So when I asked to go, it was fine with my mother. She had to talk to my dad about it, though. So, but then.
Are your parents from up north?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
My dad was from Newberry.
Okay.
And he only had one sister.
Oh my God.
My mother was from Grand Marais, and she had 3 sisters and 1 brother. I had to think about it because
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So they both came from small families, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
my dad just had 1 sister.
So then when you came to a formation program and you were in Adrian after you made profession, I know you've been to many places of ministry. As you were preparing to share your story with us, do you recall a significant ministry that you had, one that was just special and you enjoyed?
I liked every place I went. I really can honestly say I loved every place I went. The last place I enjoyed a great deal. It was hard to leave. Every place I went, it was hard to leave. And when you leave and you don't get to say goodbye to the kids, it's hard to do.
That was something that we were confronted with, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. And
how important that was.
And
so you mentioned earlier that after you entered, your mother had more children.
6 more.
6 more. Okay. And how did you get to know them? Through home visits?
Well, I was lucky because I was in Detroit, and I was in Chicago, and then I went to Detroit. And then I'm in between, so there I went to the Upper Peninsula. I came back to the Upper Peninsula. And I was in the Sioux, which is only a few miles away, 63, but that wasn't bad. And My mom never got to come and see me when I was on any other mission because she had to take care of kids. So, and I knew that would happen. But anyway.
Do you think, was Mother Gerald in charge at that time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that maybe she sent you up there so you could be present to your family?
I think so. I've lost 4 brothers.
Oh, you have, okay.
Yeah, and so, and then shortly after my brothers died, my dad died. So I was there when, I was in the Sioux when my dad died.
Oh,
and then
that had to be hardship.
It was hard, but at least I could see him, and I watched him, you know, come closer to his death time, which was very difficult for me.
You lost not only your father, but your friend.
Yeah, and we celebrated every birthday together. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was never one cake. It was always 2 cakes, and it was always both of us. So, and I liked sports, and that's probably because I liked what he did, because my dad was he was a coach, he was a referee, he had played all different sports in high school, and so I knew all about that.
As you think about your dad, and I know he was special, I know your mother was as well, what is it, what value do you feel you received? I'm sure many, but a particular value that you received from your dad and your mom?
The love of each of us.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can remember asking my mom how she could love all of us, and she explained love to me in a manner that I had never heard, and it made a difference.
Can you recall how she explained it?
It's not something that you can hold in your hand. It's something that grows. It just grows. Mm-hmm. And with each of my brothers and sisters, our time together, they're my best friends.
That's
my
a
siblings.
Gift. That's a gift. That's something you got from your parents. That was instilled in all of you as you were growing up.
And the 2 girls always took care of one of the boys. So if whatever we did, they did with us. They went with us to the store and to just to the playground and things like that. So
it sounds like your parents didn't sit around and tell you how to love. You watched it.
I did.
It was right there in front of you. Tremendous gift. How did you carry that value with you through your ministries, through the rest of your life, to this point?
Because I like kids. I told my mom I didn't want my own kids.
Uh-huh.
And then when you get 35 kids in a classroom,
right.
you just have 35. I had 62 one year.
Yeah.
And it was a big group, but I just got along with them. Mm-hmm. And I like sports, and so the boys knew that I would go to the games and things, and that made a difference. And it made a difference to parents, too, because I would be there to support the kids. And
so in one way, you were for them what your dad was for you as a teacher, and the kids loved that.
It really was that way.
In your many ministries, you particularly mentioned an experience about when you taught in high school. Mm-hmm. And you taught in high school where?
In Marinette.
Okay.
I went to the school in Wisconsin. I taught in high school in Wisconsin, and I enjoyed it very, very much.
Now, you have coming from a background of teaching elementary school.
Yes.
So
I started in 2nd grade, and I moved up. Almost every year I moved up. Uh-huh. When I got to 7th and 8th grade, then I was set there, and I enjoyed the students. I really, in a sense, a couple of the kids would call me Mom, because in a sense, I could, when they walked in the classroom in the morning, I could tell if it was going to be a good day for some of them, or whether it was going to be a bad day. And I would make the rounds in the room so they knew I knew they were all there. And if I felt that they needed a word, I would say something to them and hope that, prayed that they'd have a good day. And so they knew that I cared about them, and they knew that if they told me something, I would take it, and it wouldn't go on. It stayed with me. So that sometimes I felt like I was their friend, and I probably was. But I tried to keep myself focused on the fact I was teacher first. And if they needed help, they could ask me. They were not afraid.
All right, but in moving into the high school situation, you expressed how special that was for you. And in particular, you mentioned something about the sharing faith.
Yeah, because when you teach little kids, they listen to what you say, but they don't ask you questions about how do you do it, how do you live out the faith. And so, in a real sense, it was how I reacted to them, and they reacted to me, that they saw my faith.
The high school kids. Okay. So you were, it sounds as though you were sharing faith with each other versus you don't
just
teach.
Teaching it.
Yeah.
And
you don't teach faith. Yeah, you teach religion. Yeah.
You show them how you live it.
Yeah.
And that made a difference.
Do you have a special scripture saying or a special quote that has been very helpful to you in your life?
I keep changing it.
Okay. Great.
Usually is love, because that's, for me, I experienced the love of my parents my whole life. I mean, I don't ever remember getting mad at them. You know, I respected them, which was a rule, and I didn't talk back. And I never noticed my brothers talking back to my parents. Not to my dad. My dad was the boss. And sometimes, you know, I could feel that he was the boss and we better behave. But always, he never stayed mad. He never was, I mean, once he had to correct stuff. I remember once saying to my mom, how come you leave these things for me? It's hard for me to do this. And then it made a difference to when he's corrected.
This is switching a little bit. Your parents, what if they were with us, or they don't even have to be with us, you can still talk to them, but it's the three of you. You know, and you've got the attention of your mother and father, I mean, after all the many children that they had, that you had them to yourself. What is it that you'd want to say to them at this time of your life?
How much they let me be who I was.
And just say that, Mom, Dad, yeah.
And if someone said something about I ought to do something this way or that, I would talk it over with my mom. And she said, you be who you are. And
has that been easy for you to do in your lifetime?
Once I got used to it, yeah, it has been. I really do be who I am. Even in class, I was like that.
What's one thing you really like about yourself?
How much I care for my family.
Yeah, that's very obvious.
And people in my crowd. I just enjoy seeing them. That they made me feel comfortable, and it was hard to do because I came from the Upper Peninsula, and there were only two of us from the Upper Peninsula, and we both kind of felt like strangers. And so it was easier to get into it. It takes me a long time to make friends.
Okay.
But once I make one, they're friends forever.
Good. Cora Marie, how would you like to be remembered?
That I loved teaching, that I'm happy that I was born in the family I was born in. I miss my parents terribly. I miss my siblings who have died. And very often, I have their pictures in my bedroom, and very often I look at them and think about stuff we did together, because we did everything together. On Sundays, in the summer, we would go on picnics together. If it was nice, and if it wasn't nice, we'd have a picnic lunch at home, but we couldn't go anywhere.
What about your students? What is it that your students, one thing that they remember about you? They might be watching this, because it's going to be on YouTube.
Oh, they know I cared about them.
Okay.
Sometimes the girls would say, "You like the boys better."
We always said that. The nuns always liked the boys better than the girls.
And I probably did, because and I said, "Well, what would you expect? I was raised with 11 brothers. I mean, they treated me like the big sister."
Okay. Is there anything else, as we draw this to a close, is there anything else that you'd like to say to us? Because your story is a part of the history of our congregation, and you are a significant part of our congregation.
I was scared to death when I entered. I didn't know. I missed my family, obviously. That's never changed. If I move to a new place, I miss them all over again. I remember how I was raised and how I was taught to take care of my brothers and sisters. And so when a new person comes into things, I like to try to be concerned about how they get to feel comfortable. And
because that's important to you.
Yeah,
because
it
that's
is.
something that you want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you've got hidden in your heart that you want to tell us that we don't know about you?
I think only once I wanted to go home.
Well, you didn't dare go home because your dad.
My mom said, "You made the choice." My mother said, from the day I said I wanted to enter, you made a commitment. So it would not have worked. My father, every time I'd say goodbye to my mom after the home visit, and then I'd go out and my dad would be waiting on the porch. And he said, every single time I saw him, he said, "You can come home if you want to." It would have been fine with him. My mother would not have had it. My mother would have had a fit.
Nico. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, your abundant life that you had before entrance and after, and for sharing that faith and that love with all those that you have encountered, sisters and students alike. And I hope that your time here with us is life-giving for you as well, and that you wake up every morning with renewed energy for a new day. So thank you, Cora Marie Campbell, for sharing your story.
I get nervous. I miss my family all the time, but I know that they're there, and I know that they care, And all of them, my oldest brother said, you made a good choice. And he said it early in my career, so I was surprised that he would say that.
Well, I think
Good choice
we
for you.
realize how special the family was to you.
Oh, it is.
And we realize how special you are to the Adrian Dominican family. So thank you.
Thank you.